Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and today I'm making another tier list. This time it's for the Pokemon World Championship. So I know you're all playing in the Pokemon World Championship, and so am I. No, I'm not. But uh, people like to see tier lists, especially before big tournaments. And the World Championship is the biggest tournament of them all because it's you need to qualify and stuff. But anyways, so yeah, of course, I'm going to be presenting my opinions on the meta. Of course, just my opinions, but this is what I think is the best. And by the way, this tier list is, I believe, by Zapdos TCG. Yep. And so the link to the tier list will be down below as well if you want to make your own tier list. And I will stick with the tiers that are here, tier S, A, B, C, and then don't play this, which is D, I guess. So yeah, I'll put things in these tiers. Tier S isn't going to be like absurdly broken. I think I'll put like a few decks in tier S. We'll see. I might end up changing things at the end, but don't skip to the end of the video. Sometimes people skip to the end of the video and then are really confused, but they like but I actually explained myself. That's the point of the video. But anyways, let's just hop right in so you can hear my spicy takes. But one last thing I need to say before we talk about this, it is standard format, but it is actually not the current standard format. It's the standard format after the new set Night Wanderer or Shrouded Fable is released. Night Wanderer and Shrouded Fable are a little different. I'm not entirely sure the differences. I know there are some like EXs that have been like promos, or some just promos in general that may be coming at the time, maybe in the set or maybe as just promos, but more or less it's these cards. These are the important ones. And yeah, so there's some cards. Nightly Stretcher, for example, might see a lot of play. It's a recovery card. It's good, but it's not really going to change things too much. But keep that in mind. And I will talk about the new cards. For example, there's this Charizard EX Dustnoir deck. I don't know a lot about all these decks. Well, I don't know a lot about the new decks because I obviously haven't played them. But I've played Charizard DX. There's United Wings. I've played United Wings, but it is getting some new pieces. So I will talk about those cards when we get to them. But let's just go in order here. I may choose to go out of order as well, and we'll see if I know what all these decks are. I just realized I don't know what this deck is. This Raging Vault deck. Because it's not Raging Vault Ogerpon. But anyways, let's start off with Dialga V-Star. Dialga V-Star is actually probably my least favorite deck in the standard format because it's really swingy. If you're actually playing, realistically, this is a tier list for the format, not just the tournament. So it is like a high roll deck, right? It's a deck where you need some amount of luck, but you can certainly make good plays and improve your odds of winning. That's true with any deck, but I'd say there's a greater aspect of luck with Dialga V-Star because um there aren't really close games, truly. I mean, like there's compared to most decks, there aren't really close games because either you set up or you don't. And either you V-Star power or you don't, and if you V-Star power, you're in a really good position. It's an all right deck. It's not that good though. I'm gonna put it in tier C. Uh, it's a deck that I always lose to be honest. I lose to it a lot. Um, so maybe it should be higher, but I don't think it's that good. I mean, it's 5 energies, right? That's a lot, and you're relying on Matang. Fundamentally, it's a deck that will you're gonna lose when you when you're really counting on it, probably. So yeah, Origin Form Dialga V Star, not the best deck in the game by any means. I could see in tier B, but I think it's worse. There's a lot of the decks on this tier list has less attacking options as well. So if your opponent does have I don't know, I was gonna say Mimikyu, that could be an issue. It's not a massive issue, but you could lose to control or control options, which you might be seeing because control's all right. I guess it's a little worse with a new set. I don't know. There's this card 0-6 scheme, but I don't think it's that good for control. And Dialga's not getting anything new really. So yeah, I think tier C is fine. Yeah, that's all right. I could put it in tier B. It's not a deck I'd recommend you like play. Just in general though, because of its inconsistencies. But I don't know. It's a deck that I am not super sure of, so maybe I should have done it later. Then we have Arceus. Okay, I decided I'm gonna go out of order because I want to do the Arceus decks together. Looks like there's two Arceus decks on this tier list. There's Arceus Armrouge and then Arceus Giratina V-Star. Arceus Giratina V-Star is a solid deck right now, but I don't think it's seeing much play. Let's see. So oh, I'm in Japanese. So our Arceus V-Star is it's seeing some play, uh, but not like a ton. So wait, sorry, I want to see. NAIC, was there like any Arceus? There wasn't that much Arceus Giratina, I don't think. So, it's a deck that's fallen off a little bit. I'll put it in B tier. It's like a solid, consistent deck. I don't think it's a deck that can necessarily push above other decks, though. As I said, it's consistent and it kind of gets the job done when you need it to. It's also a deck I don't really play, or I haven't seen much either lately, but it's all right. Arceus Armouge, I'll also put in B tier. It has versatility, and I will be ranking the decks within tiers, but don't worry too much about the deck within the tier. It's not as important as the tiers actually in. So, Arceus Armouge here is a deck that has his versatility. Armouge allows you to move fire energies around and attack with lots of Pokemon. It's not the most consistent deck. I'd say it's more consistent than Dialga V-Star at getting something solid going. I mean, getting your attacker and Arceus V-Star going is much more likely than Dialga V-Star, but you won't always have the exact things you need to do. So it is a bit more difficult to play than Dialga in that regard, but you are still relying on like getting your energies into play and then like kind of doing what you have to do with them, which is moving them around and also protecting them. You need to make sure you have energy spread around, your arm move stays in play, and then your engine like is still going as well. Oh, also I didn't talk about Dialga V-Star doesn't have an engine really, which isn't so good. Armouge has some engine, but like Arceus Giratina is more consistent. But Arceus Armouge, you do have powerful attacking options. You have Anti-V maybe, but you have Gouging Fire EX and you have Delphox V, so you have the ability to, or the option to spread, which is always nice. Um, yeah, Arceus decks are Arceus decks though, and they're okay right now, but they're not super great. Speaking of, what is this? Is this Giratina V? I think this is Giratina Lost Zone. I never look at these tier lists before. I glance at them before I create the videos, but I usually don't look at them too much because I don't want to be planning stuff too much. But yeah, I think this deck is Giratina Lost Zone. I don't see that somewhere else. So Giratina V-Star Lost Zone is going to be an A tier deck, I guess. It's a deck I also haven't been seeing that much, surprisingly. But it is a pretty good deck. Your Team V-Star is, I've said this before, but it's arguably the best like raw stats attacker in the game. It's probably not, but it's up there. And you're able to attack theoretically faster with Giratina V-Star in this deck than Arceus V-Star and apply earlier pressure. You also have versatility with Radiant Greninja to be able to spread damage around, and you have Sableye to also like spread damage around in a bit of a different way. You also have Cramorant, which is a very solid single price attacker, especially it's amazing early game, assuming you can get it up. The deck does have inconsistency issues, but they're not like that bad. And again, you don't really have well, you have the comfy like Lost Zone engine, but late game getting hit by an Iono can be an issue because you do need switches to make the engine work or retreating. So or I guess you definitely need switches if you want to do multiple comfies, and retreating can help you some, but Giratina V-Star, it's just really good and pretty good against most of the attackers right now. It's not really getting one-shotted by, I mean, it's getting one-shotted by something like like Raging Bolt, Ogerpon, but that's not. I'll talk about that later. But you still have like single price attackers, right? So it's not that big of an issue. And it's not like it's just popular, but it's not like the strongest deck in the game. And then against other things, you're not really getting one-shotted much. So, pretty tanky. The damage output right now is low. Chien-Pao also. Chien-Pao EX and Regidrago EX are pretty similar. I guess Gardevoir and Lugia can one-shot you. So you are getting one-shotted, but you're surviving hits in some matchups. And the matchups you are getting one-shotted, you have a single price attacking options to counter those decks. So, yeah, Giratina V-Star is just a really solid deck. I don't think it's S tier, but it's probably it's certainly a top 10 deck. It's potentially like a top 5 deck as well. Next we have Lost Zone, what I like to call Lost Zone Basic Box. I just realized there is no like Radiant Charizard or Radiant Greninja builds here. I mean, there's no specifically Radiant Charizard or Radiant Greninja builds. So or this is like both builds, I guess. I think it's also a tier A deck. I think Lost Zone's a good deck. I've always liked Lost Zone, and I think it's still pretty good. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I forgot something. Never mind. Giratina V-Star is staying in tier A, but there's the new Kyurem. I forgot this card was coming out. So, Kyurem here, that's in Japanese. Pretty much, it does 110 to 3 points Pokemon if you have a card with Colress in the name in the discard. So, this means if you play your Colress's Experiment, you're super vulnerable to this incredibly powerful attack. You can use Manaphy to stop it, but you really need some like solid attacker to really counter this. No, I'm gonna move. I think Giratina V-Star is a really good deck. I'm gonna move it down to tier B though because Kyurem's so bad for you. Like you're just gonna get absolutely destroyed if you play this deck and your opponent loses Kyurem. So yes, you can Manaphy, but that's a bit of an issue. And then with the other deck where you're like having tons of single prizes and like basics in play, Kyurem's just gonna destroy you. Giratina V-Star is okay against Kyurem, but the rest of the Pokemon in the deck aren't. So yeah, Lost Zone is a fun deck. It's a versatile deck as well. And I think it does have some serious potential to do really well. We'll see how much people decide to push this deck versus push other decks. Like in previous formats, we have seen Lost Zone pushed to its limits sometimes, but sometimes we haven't. Sometimes we've just seen it like kind of stay the same. So we'll see what happens. I think it is a deck that has potential, but then the Kyurem is also an issue. Then we have this Gudra V-Star with Lost Zone. Uh, um, it's like Giratina V-Star, but a little worse. I'll put it in tier C. I mean, I wouldn't really recommend playing this deck because I think Giratina V-Star is a better way to play Lost Zone. Just does more damage, and that's important, a very meaningful amount of damage. But it's not that bad of a deck. It's just a deck that people don't really play, and it's not like it's a little lackluster compared to some other decks. I think it is okay. I think it's actually a pretty similar power level to Giratina V-Star Lost Zone, but um, not quite as good. And so the fact that it's like there's another deck that's kind of just better than it hurts it a bunch for me. Dragapult EX Lost Zone is a deck. It's a deck I like a lot, but keep in mind this is with the Huron format. So I'm gonna put it honestly in um, B tier. I don't know. I don't know what deck's gonna play Kyurem. So Kyurem is it's really good. But I don't know where to put this deck. Dragapult EX is so fun with like, Lost Zone. It's one of my favorite decks right now. But I'm gonna put it in C tier. I think it's just gonna get destroyed by Kyurem because you're just kind of manually evolving your Drakelokes. You do have like a really nice engine. No, I'll put it at top of tier C, but it's not that. It's so sketchy against Kyurem, but you have like a really nice engine and you have all right attacking options. Your attackers like early game are pretty bad, not terrible. I mean you have Cramorant, but that's about it because Dragapult's probably not coming into play until turn 3. In attacking, it is possible to do it sooner than that, but it's a lot of pieces, so really unlikely and not actually impossible turn 1. Then we have other Dragapult builds. We got Actually, no, let's do other Lost Zone. We'll do the Charizard deck, and then we have Dragapult Zad. Well, let's do Dragapult Zadu. Where's Dragapult Pidgeot? That's the best way to play Dragapult. Like, and a lot of people think it's the best way to play Dragapult too. Well, that's not on the list, so we're gonna say, oh no, we got Dragapult Charizard here though. What is there not Dragapult Pidgeot? I see Pidgeot Mimikyu. Maybe there's not, or maybe I'm just blind, but whatever. So, Dragapult Charizard. I'll do this one. Dragapult EX Charizard EX is weird. It's a deck I've been seeing a lot of, and it probably plays Pidgeot. It's a weird deck. I guess I'll put it in tier A. I really don't know. It's a deck I'm just so conflicted on because I haven't played. I actually played it once, but like the list I was playing wasn't that good. Then it didn't work. I just didn't set up. It's a weird deck. Playing double stage twos, of course, always going to be awkward. Double stage twos that aren't like engine stage twos. Drake looks an engine, but that's not a stage 2. So you do Pidgeot EX though to help the deck, I guess, and you have like Barrel. You have stuff. It's a weird deck. I really don't know enough to say about it at this point because I played with it some. I played against it some, and I played with it some, and it has some like really high highs, right? Because you can you have these options, and having versatility is always nice. But like Charizard EX and Dragapult EX, they're different, but they're not that different. They're both stage 2 EXs, similar HP amounts. Sometimes the damage is like realistically the same. It has the same impact in the game as well. Because Dragapult EX's spread doesn't necessarily always matter a ton, and Charizard EX's like varying damage doesn't always matter. Sometimes just always two-shotting, and you're just going to be two-shotting with both, so it doesn't matter that much. So in terms of like versatility, it's versatile, but there are certainly more versatile combos. But then Charizard EX, Dragapult EX, just really solid Pokemon, and you don't have some big weakness or anything. I mean, you have TM Devolution, but hopefully that doesn't happen to you. And you have like I guess a solid engine and good late game and stuff like that. So early game is okay, but you are inconsistent. Dragapult Zadu is not the best way to play Dragapult, I don't think. I think most people agree as well that it is Dragapult Pidgeot, but that's not here on this list. It doesn't look like. So Dragapult Zadu though is and I'll just put Dragapult. I'll put this in A tier. This is gonna kind of also this is gonna represent both Dragapult Zadu and Dragapult Pidgeot. I think it's a really solid deck. As I said, I do think Pidgeot's better. It's just more consistent, which is important. It's consistent throughout like essentially the entire game, which is really important. And Zadu is like okay, it certainly has value, but it's it's to be honest pretty niche because you accelerate energies, but you can accelerate energies with Mela or do Neo Upper Energy. I think Neo Upper Energy plus Pidgeot though gives you just a much better game, and you're realistically not going to get ability locked by Iron Thorns EX. So Dragapult EX is it's pretty good. You do 200 to the active, 60 snipe essentially, but it can be spread around, which is really nice. Dragapult EX just a really solid raw stats attacker, just like Charizard EX. And we got Charizard Lasso next. Who's out here playing Charizard Lasso? Don't play this. I'm actually gonna put this in the don't play this. It's not like that bad. Like it's not the worst deck in the game or anything like that. It's honestly probably better than some of these decks here. But you're gonna get destroyed by Kyurem, and also, and yes, I do know that Charizard DX is immune to bench damage, but um, it's like not in my opinion, it's not like a better way to play Charizard EX. And now you're actively handicapping yourself because of Kyurem. And I don't think Kyurem's going to be in every deck, but I think it'll see some play. And so you don't want to like actively put yourself in danger of it when you could just not. So yeah, Charizard Pidgeot is tier A, I guess. It's a tier S. It's tier A. It's a really good deck. Charizard DX Pidgeot EX was just like it was the top deck in the game. It was the deck that was like the most developed, but still had a lot of room to grow as well, which is always a good sign. That means the deck is just good. If a deck is changing a lot, but and still doing well. So Charizard DX is a really really good deck. I don't think really anyone doubts that. And this is the best way to play it. Again, Team Evolution, I said that for the double stage 2 deck with Dragapult Charizard, but same issue here. But don't worry about that, I guess. And yeah, you have some options, and you have defensive control options as well. Again, keep in mind, I know that there are time rules with the World Championship, but this is just the World's format, not necessarily the World Championship itself, although it is related to that, and that is taken into consideration. But yeah, so like control options are on a downside because of time, is what I'm saying. But Charizard EX, Pidgeot EX, obviously a really good deck. It's been good for a while. Does struggle against Dragapult EX, but that doesn't actually seem that much play. Then we have Charizard EX with Dusknoir. Dusknoir is the next new card we got to talk about. Or I guess what's this? Dustclops and Dustnoir. So they have an ability that says they knock themselves out. Cursed Bomb here, and it says you then place a bunch of damage cards on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Dustnoir here is going to place 13. Dustclops placing 5. This is useful for a snipe-based attack that can really just win you the game, either by actually winning you the game by knocking out all your opponent's Pokemon, or it could just win you the game by completely destroying your opponent's bench to the point where they can never recover because you can just target their bench over and over and over again, and so they never get their attacker set up and you just win the game. This is really powerful. Of course, there is an issue of you're giving up prizes, so you can't do this forever. But also, giving up prizes increases your Charizard EX's damage output, so that's pretty insane. You can just one-shot anything, which is really powerful. One-shotting by pinging with the Dustclops or Dusknoir and then hitting with Charizard EX. So, just really powerful there. And I think it's all right, though. I don't know too much about this deck, to be honest. I haven't seen it played ever. I mean, it's not out yet. And then I looked at PokemonCard.io for like deck reviews, or like looking at the new decks, including this deck. But I only saw it like once or twice. So it's an interesting combo. It seems awkward though. It's like double stage twos again, but there is like it's not like oh you have your stage one that's an engine. No, it's literally the opposite of an engine. It's actively drawing your opponent cards, although you can Iona them. You cannot unfair stamp or Roxanne them though. You cannot unfair stamp them. You could Roxanne potentially, but Charizard DX with Dust. I'm gonna put in tier B, like near the bottom. I literally have no idea how good this. I have a vague idea of how good this deck is because I can kind of predict stuff, but not a great idea. It seems kind of inconsistent, but funny and powerful. Like when it gets going, because you can just win the game off of this with off the Dustnoir Dustclops. Then we have I guess I'll go to what other deck should I go to now? I'll go to the other Pidgeot deck, and we'll talk about control now because I mentioned control as well. And sure, while we're there, we'll do mill because why not? And we'll do this and this and Um, yeah, there we go. So one of my favorite decks right now is going to be Pidgeot Control. Pidgeot EX Control uses a bunch of different options. There's so many different ways to play it. I actually want to check this. I want to play Greninja EX Control. So Greninja EX Control. Wait, what's this? There's a third Greninja EX. I did not know that. Why is there so many Greninja EXs? But anyways, Greninja EX Twilight Masquerade. Okay, no, it was not played in Control. But um, so the Pidgeot EX, you search for cards, and then you have control-based decks. I'm assuming some of you, or a lot of you, probably have some familiarity with it, and yeah, it's a really good deck. It's a tier S deck. It's kind of weird because it's a deck that's not really well defined, so it can technically beat like anything. So it kind of gives it an unfair advantage because it's not super well defined here. It's defined by Mimikyu in Pidgeot. I hope this is the right deck. I assume this is Pidgeot Control. But yeah, Pidgeot EX Control is really powerful because you just have the ability to really do what you want. It does have inconsistencies in the early game, but um, yeah, it's a deck with a high skill. No, I'll drop down to tier A. For the World Championships, though, I think it will do well because if you are really skilled with the deck, or really with any deck with a lot of decision making, that it's good, and you have the ability to just outskill your opponents. And so at the World Championships, theoretically, those should be the best people, at least in person. There's a lot more online players than in person players, so um, but whatever. So you have Pidgeot, which is it lets you search your deck for whatever you want every single turn, and then you have other options. I'm gonna make some videos on it. I actually made a video where I played Greninja EX, Pidgeot EX Control, which I'm gonna talk about Greninja EX as well. There's so many different ways to play this card. There's just Pidgeot EX, and there's like Control the options, and then there's Frostlass. I'll put this deck in tier C though. To be honest, so in Pokemon TCG Live, it's really solid, but it also doesn't work right, or at least I don't think it does. I don't know if they fixed it, but you only do if you have double turbo, you're supposed to do 100 snipe. A lot of people are confused about the ruling, but that's just how it works. It's weird. It's kind of silly in my opinion, but that is how it works. So that's not great because you often want to snipe barrels, which you can do in live, but you can't do IRL. So yeah, Greninja EX is a bit lacking. It lacks strong damage, and its spread is kind of slow. So your opponent will, if they play Manphy, Manphy is definitely hitting the board before you can deal with it. And the Frostlasses can kind of handicap you if you're running that build because now, well, one, it's like a consistency issue, and then two, you're damaging your own Pokemon oftentimes. So you're gonna have some serious issues with this, unfortunately, that will arise very commonly playing Greninja EX because you just don't have great consistency. It's not like a terrible unplayable deck, and I think if you go towards like a slower controller, semi-control based build with Pidgeot EX, you can see success, but I don't know. That to me is kind of grouped in with Pidgeot control as well. So then we have Snorlax. Snorlax control it's all right, I guess, but I'm gonna put this in don't play this. In in-person tournaments, there's the timer issue, but don't play this, please. Just don't play it. In terms of how good it is, it's like it's okay, I guess, but I just don't want people to play this, to be honest. Um, but yeah, in terms of how good it is, it's okay, I guess. But generally, and at the World Championships, people are generally going to be better. There's certain things you can do. Um, Presumably people will be prepared for this deck. If you are going to the World Championships, I mean, you're probably better than me, but prepare for Snorlax. Don't like just ignore Snorlax. Know how to play the matchup because it's completely different than any other matchup outside of like control. So prepare against some type of control deck. It could just be Snorlax, which is easy to prepare against, or it could be a more complicated control deck. But know how to play control. Don't bench all your Pokemon that you don't need. But yeah, so if you're playing against control, but just don't bench Pokemon you don't need, and only bench Pokemon that can attack. I imagine many have heard this before, but just play well. And then you can be able to beat it a lot of the time. I mean, there is some luck, and it's really annoying. It's a great ladder deck because people quit a lot against it, but if you stick it out, you have a good chance of winning. So it might not actually be the worst deck, but it is going to don't play this because it's not so good. I would definitely play Pidgeot EX Control. It's much better, in my opinion, but also it's much harder to play as well. New players, you can play this, I guess, to learn the ropes, but yeah. And then you'll graduate to this deck. Then we got Great Tusk Mill. This is a deck where you discard the cards from the top of your opponent's deck. It's not very good. It's good against certain decks. Like if you're against Raging Bull Ogerpon, you're gonna win. But if you're against like anything else, you're probably not. Maybe against like Lawson. So you discard cards from the top of your deck. You can get lucky there and discard stuff your opponent really needs, and you will get lucky some of the time. So it's not just like it's not just like pure luck that you're getting what discarding things that your opponent needs. That'll certainly happen sometimes, but it won't happen all the time. And even if you need to discard like if they're like a rare candy deck, you need to discard a lot of rare candies. So you just need to be really careful. And it's inconsistent as well. It's not that inconsistent, but it's not that good. Then we have Iron Thorns EX as well. This is just like you ability lock them. This deck's not very good either. It's actually pretty bad. This is the quad Iron Thorns EX deck. It is kind of fun and has some matchups. Again, it probably beats Raging Bull Ogerpon, but not even always. And then um, it has certain matchups where you can do some really annoying things to your opponent, but most of the time it's just not that good. And it has literally no versatility. It only runs one Pokemon. So um, yeah, it's fun, like theoretically, and just for like messing around, but it's not that good. Beta EX Gardevoir EX is not a deck I'm that familiar with. I know some people love this deck, and then I probably said it's like super good, it's super bad at different times, but it's whatever. I'll put it in tier C. It's not a deck I'd recommend you play because it just doesn't able to get Beta EX out super quickly. In my opinion, it's not quick enough. You can get it out turn one, but the deck doesn't do that. So your opponent will have a chance to play their items. So they're going to play their items, and then you're not going to be able to do what you want. Maybe if you go first, you can stop them from rare candying. But now lots of decks run ways to get around this. And it's just worse than Gardevoir EX, which is an S tier deck. I think it's like, it doesn't have any big issues with the upcoming format, and it's just a good deck, right? So you're able to go ahead and accelerate lots of energies and just one shot everything for a single prizer. There are certain issues if your opponent is able to like do sprinkle damage around or like vacuum launch or whatever. But hopefully that doesn't happen, and it won't happen all the time. So you will just be, and even if it is happening, you're just in a normal deck then. Admittedly, a bit of a slower deck, but Hyper Aroma has actually been really solid for the deck. Is a consistency A spec, which is pretty interesting, but pretty solid. Useful for Bayonetta EX as well, but really great for just Gardevoir. So, really solid deck. Next, I'll talk about Chien-Pao EX actually, and then Lugia V-Star. I group these decks together, but Chien-Pao's not that good right now. I'll put it in tier like C, like top of C. It's not a terrible deck, but I think it is outclassed by Gardevoir EX and Lugia V-Star. I often group those decks together when I talk about them, just like I am doing now, because you're just accelerating. You're using a stage 2 to accelerate a bunch of energy to a Pokemon that is really good, except Chien-Pao EX is a multi-prizer, and the Gardevoir EX Pokemon are single prizers, and the Lugia V-Star Chinchino is a single prizer. Lugia V-Star is an okay deck. I'll put it at the bottom of tier A. It has the potential to be absurdly good, but it's inconsistent. So yeah, I mean, just it's up to you. I guess it's also a deck I don't like playing against, kind of like Dialga V-Star, where the game kind of feels out of your control if you're playing against it, because if you get set up, you're in a really good spot, but if you don't, you just can't, and you just kind of lose. But it depends on the speed of the game and how things are going as well for your opponent. But Lugia V-Star is a really solid deck when it sets up. It's arguably the best deck in the game. You have Legacy RNG as well, which is super powerful, allowing you to use these hit and run options essentially, where you're attacking with two prizes, but they're actually like one prizes, and you can like recycle your RNG. It's really powerful. Actually, for Student Zorag V-Star, I don't really know why this deck's on the list. It's like definitely worse than every other deck on here, I think. It's actually going to be pretty interesting with a new card, Area Zero Under Depths. I don't know if that's right, but there's a new stadium which is kind of cool. But it's not out yet. It won't be out for the World Championship, so don't play this. I mean, it's just not very good. It's not like a completely terrible deck, but I definitely think it's probably, I don't know if it's the worst deck, but it's not that interesting, or like it's kind of like Rogue, but it's not even that Rogue, but it's just not that good. I mean, it's Rogue because people don't play it because it's not that good, but it's not Rogue because it's super unique. It's not like a single prize deck. Usually Rogue decks are often like single prize decks, and it's not that. And it's not consistent, and it's not that powerful. So yeah. And then I'm gonna actually save that. I think I said I was gonna do the new decks first, but no, I changed my mind. So let's talk about the Ogre Pond decks, I guess. Um, so we have, actually no, let's do Miraidon. Miraidon EX. don't play this. I play so we'll play Future Hands. Future Hands is just better than Rhydon. Future Hands is what this deck's called with the Iron Hands EX and Iron Crown EX. Rhydon's not that bad. It'll go here. For like the don't play this decks, it's not that bad. But and then Future Hands is gonna go here. Iron Hands EX with Iron Crown EX, great ladder deck. It's just a turbo deck, but it's not the best turbo deck. It is able to combat single prizes though, which is nice. And then Groudon EX just isn't very good, to be honest. Iron Hands EX does like everything better, just in my opinion, from what I've seen. I think Rhydon's late game is like terrible, but so is Iron. Like so are any turbo decks late game is probably pretty bad. Admittedly, no, I was gonna say like Raging Bolts is the worst because you discard all your energy, but then you do have a bit of an engine, not the best engine, but you have somewhat of an engine. Rhydon, you don't really have an engine or power. You don't have a lot of power, which is a big issue. You don't have some big benefit. It's kind of like Iron Hands is good, but like just play the Iron Hands deck. But then Raging Bolt EX with Ogerpon EX, I guess I'll put in tier B. Tier B seems too high. I'm not a big fan of this deck. I'll put it in tier C. Um, it's a turbo deck where you just it's just a turbo deck, right? Just do lots of damage really fast. That being said, let's look at the top of the tier list. Oh wait, all these decks are gonna have a single prize in the active, so you're terrible against single prize decks, and a lot of the good decks in the game are actually like single prize decks. Dragapult EX and Charizard EX and Pidgeot EX, they're not single prizes, but you know it is the previous evolutions. So your turbo aspect, you're gonna go the Raging Bolt player will go second, because the other player probably wants to go first. Maybe not, but let's just say that happens. It doesn't actually matter. And then the Raging Bull player hits into a single prize and knocks it out. And then if you prize trade evenly for the rest of the game, you lose. So yeah, that's a bit of an issue. Or if you prize trade two prizes the rest of the game, you'll lose, which is pretty common. It's not a terrible deck though. It's a good ladder grinding deck, or a decent one. It has not a ton of versatility, but some. It's probably more than the Iron Hands EX and Rhydon EX decks. But yeah, it's still not the best. It's all right. It's a whatever deck. Then we got the Ogerpon deck, the Ogerpon box deck. This deck's not good. Don't play this deck. This deck's pretty terrible. Honestly, this might be the worst deck on the tier list, actually. It's like a fun deck. You have some options. You have walling, and you have like spread, and you have counters and stuff. But they don't work, so you just don't do anything and you lose. The deck is the engine's pretty underwhelming. Honestly, the deck with like the 30 energies with the Ogerpon might be better than this, and that deck's not good. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really work, because you need like a lot of pieces, and then the benefit, like the positives of the deck aren't that high. So you're gonna like spend all these resources to be at the same place that all the other decks are at, and you need to get lucky to be at that place, and you're still probably gonna you're not like favored at that point either. You're just in like a mediocre to underwhelming place because you need like the Ogre's Mask card. It's not like some absurdly unreachable place to get to, but it's not like super great when you get there either. It's not the best way to power up the other Ogre Pawns or any of the Ogre Pawns. So yeah. Then we got the Regidrago V-Star. I'll save that for later. Goldengo EX, I actually don't know what build this is. There are a bunch of different builds, but we'll just say whatever. Goldengo EX. Goldengo EX is okay. It's not that good though. I'm gonna put it in tier C to be honest. It'll go here. It's powerful one-shotting potential. It's kind of like a turbo deck, but it actually does set up. You have a better engine. It's a slower turbo deck. That's kind of weird, but that is really what it is. It's focusing on one-shotting, lacks versatility, but then it has a better engine late game than turbo decks because Golden EX is a solid engine, not a great engine, but an all-right engine. You have more tankiness, and you don't need to like pop off. I mean, you need to do a bunch to get one-shots because you need a bunch of energies in hand, but you don't need to be playing your supporter to actually attack, which is nice. And I mean, you probably do, but you can play like a regular supporter, and then yeah, it's just solid. It's kind of turbo-y, but it's all right, but certainly not like a great deck either. There are better decks out there. Then just regular Raging Bolt EX. I actually have no idea what this deck is. Is this Raging Bolt Palkia? I'm gonna look Raging Bolt EX. So I want to see what this deck is. Um, Yeah, I think it's Raging Bolt Palkia. It could be Raging Bolt Lost Zone. I don't think it could be Raging Bolt Lost. It could be Raging Bolt with Sandy Shacks. That might be what it is. But regardless, Raging Bolt, like, don't play this. This is not the best way to play Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is inconsistent, but the most consistent way to play it is the Ogre Pond. That is actually somewhat consistent, especially early game. It's pretty consistent. You certainly will miss sometimes, but the Raging Bolt deck that's slower and lacks the explosive nature and also lacks the late game engine is pretty bad. I mean, I guess it's not the worst deck here, but never play this over the Raging Bull Ogre deck. The Raging Bull Ogre deck, it's cheaper as well. Like the Raging Bull Ogre deck's cheaper, at least in live, and it is better, like pretty much throughout the entire game. There is some versatility. You can like Greninja, reading Greninja, but that's like not that good. It's nice once, but it's a little. But then you're sacrificing like your entire game to do that, so it's not great. Or you're sacrificing like Raging Bull and stuff. So then you have the Ancient Box deck. This will be tier C as well. I'm not a big fan of this deck. I'll put it here. Um, I don't know if you play this deck, you know what it is. There's not too much to say about it. Not the most consistent deck in the game because or not consistently one-shotting stuff. So that's a big issue. It is a single price deck and it's the single price deck in the game. I don't know. It was for a while. I don't know if it still is like the single price deck, but that's kind of how I think of it. And it shows the weaknesses of single prizes that like they're getting one shotted, and you need to like spend all these resources. But it is a deck that kind of do stuff. If it's working well, it can kind of hang with the best decks, but it's certainly not always working well. Um, Gardevoir EX. I mean, like, don't play this. It's just not a very good turbo deck. I guess I'll move it up like here or something. But like, it's not a very good turbo deck compared to Raging Bolt EX. Raging Bolt EX is a turbo deck. Turbo decks aren't great for winning long term. If you just want to win a lot of games in a short period of time, play turbo decks. But if you want to win a high percentage of games, turbo decks aren't necessarily the best way to go. But they kind of have some value. But if they're really good, but Gardevoir EX isn't that good. Um, you don't really have a lot of options either. I don't think this is a firebox. It's kind of like Arceus Armors. If you want to play Gardevoir EX, play Arceus Armors. Then we have Blissey EX, which is like a healing. Oh wait, no. So we have another turbo deck in Roaring Moon Squawkabilly. It's actually okay. I'll put in. Oh, it's okay for a turbo deck. Bottom of tier C. Um, Again, like Bandit EX is so low because it's outclassed by Gardevoir. And then we got Dipplin Thwackey. This is a single price deck. I guess it's the top of don't play this. It's pretty not good. No, it'll be bottom of C tier. It's like gets obliterated by spread, and there are times when it just doesn't do enough damage, and it's awkward. No, I'll move it up. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. It's not that good. If you've played it, you know it's not that. I mean, there are times like it seems sometimes it might seem good because it's performing higher than expectations, which most people's expectations are that the deck's pretty bad. And so if it does like much of anything, it's like, oh wow, this deck's so good, but it's not actually that good. It's gonna certainly struggle to win games because it'll struggle in the early game. The late game is actually really good with all their Thwackies up, but your opponent will be able to target down your Thwackies. Also, you need the stadium in play, and you need your Pokemon in play. Your engine doesn't work if your Dipplin isn't in play. So that's not entirely true, but it's kind of true. So you need lots of Pokemon, and you're going to struggle to get lots of Pokemon. Any spread, which a lot of decks do run some form of spread, you're done for. So yeah, it certainly shows the weaknesses of a single price deck yet again, just like the Roaring Moon deck. And then we have Blissey EX. Actually, no, I'll talk about Murkrow or United Wings, which has Murkrow, Dartrix, Flamigo, and Watchrill. And they say United Wings, the attack for whatever, the attack costs are different. It does 20 for each card, and you discard with United Wings. So use United Wings, and it's a single price attack. This deck, I have no idea where to predict. I mean, I have some idea, but it's not out yet. So, oh, the other deck, yeah, I did Charizard EX Dustnoir, which isn't out yet. But Murkrow, Dartrix, Flamigo, and Watchrill are okay. Their type weaknesses are like good, I guess, but type like hitting weakness isn't that good right now. There's a lot of single prize attackers in like multi-prize decks that are good, right? I said single prizes are bad. That's not really entirely true, but just pure single prizes aren't very good. And it's a weird deck. I don't know. It's like kind of turbo wheat and single prizer. So it's kind of like It's kind of like Ancient Box, to be honest. I described it as a more chaotic Ancient Box. Ancient Box is kind of like lukewarm, is kind of how I describe that deck. It's a little underwhelming a lot of the time. And the Mad Party, or it's not Mad Party or Night March, but it's like Mad Party or Night March. But the wings. If you played Mad Party or Night March, they're all similar, and they swing hard, and they'll miss sometimes. So you probably like lose if you miss, because when I say you swing, you like use all your resources to like push towards something, and if you miss, now you don't have anything left, so you've swung and missed. But and that can happen with other decks, but it's more common with this type of deck. But it can do big things. I'll just put it right next to Ancient Box. I'll put it above it, I guess. It has some potential, and it doesn't get blown away by like a tap, unlike United Wings or unlike Night March Mad Party, which had 30 HP and 40 HP for the main attackers, respectively. Now you have 60 HP, 90 HP. I think the Watchful is also 60 HP or 110 HP on Flamigo, which is actually not bad, and you can use it. It's not the best stacking option. It's actually the worst probably in the deck, but it is an option if you need it for the high HP. Next, we have Blissey EX. Blissey EX is really fun. I'm going to put it in B tier. Honestly, I think it's an okay deck. It's a really mediocre deck, but it doesn't have any really big weaknesses outside of, I guess, its actual weakness, which is fighting. So Greninja EX is bad for you, but you can just Mew EX them, so that's fine, I guess. It's a deck I've been playing, and it's an all right deck. I mean, you can certainly use Monkey Dory really well. It's a solid use of it. Gardevoir EX is probably the best, but Blissey EX is still really nice, and then you're able to have some versatility. I think if it's a deck that people are pushing to its limits, then it has potential to be a really solid deck. It's not right now though. People aren't doing that. People are just kind of playing it with like Monkey Dory and whatever. But whatever is actually nothing. Just Monkey Dory is really the main thing. But with some versatility, I think it can be pushed to a really solid deck. But I think tier B, like low tier B, is fine. You have the tankiness, and you have the ability to move energy around, and you have the attack to draw cards, which is solid. In terms of disruption, if you get disrupted and knocked out, things can go badly, but it's not that bad because you are tanky and have the actual ability to move energy around. So, if you like make some like weaker like misplays or whatever, which does happen even at the highest level, you can still kind of like recover from that using your ability and stuff like that. So, yeah, of course, you making misplays, you will probably face some downside, but you're not like you should be somewhat okay. So it's kind of like Arceus Armors actually, because you're moving the energy around. You need to kind of protect the energies, and that's actually more important in this deck to protect the energies. And you can't always do that and actually attack, but it's a really solid deck. Compared to the other ones, it's high, but it's not an amazing deck. Then we got Okidogi EX with Pekkaron EX. Okidogi EX, what does it do? I think 260 if it's poisoned. Then you have a tool that says you do more, but it's really awkward. This is kind of like Regidrago Ogerpon, but it's like worse because you have a supporter that accelerates energies, but the supporter doesn't even draw any cards. It's so bad. I mean, it's not the worst supporter ever, but it's weaker than Professor Saw's Vitality, which is a good supporter, but um, yeah, so this deck isn't so good. I don't know if this is the trio with like four Pokemon in it. The Okidogi EX, Munkidora EX, Fezandifty EX, and Pekkaron EX. If it's like this full box deck, Pekkaron EX and Munkidora, or sorry, Fezandifty EX and Munkidora EX are okay. But I'm gonna put this deck in the bottom of tier C. I don't think it's very good. And Regidrago V-Star is the last deck, and I just made a whole video on this deck, or I maybe will tomorrow. I actually don't know, or I might sometime. I made a Regidrago video and I recorded it. I'm not going to talk too much about that because you can check that video out either when it comes out or if it's already out. So subscribe to my channel to make sure you watch that. But this deck is pretty good. I'm going to put it in tier A. I think it's a little inconsistent, right? But it has the big upside of having Kyurem, which I mentioned, and Dragapult EX. Dragapult EX, obviously really good. It's really high on the tier list. And the Guillotine V-Star is good, high in the tier list as well as a solid attacker. Zingu V-Star isn't like high, but it's not terrible. And then Regibolt EX, all right. Certainly a solid attacking option. And then Kyurem, just insane. 110 to everything is like so good. Or not everything, to 3 Pokemon, which is most of them. And so, yeah, Regidrago V-Star is a really solid deck, actually. But here you go. Here's my top 10 and full tier list as well. A few decks aren't on here, but overall, this is my take. It ended up being a lot more bottom heavy than I was expecting. So I think the meta is all right though. Like I don't think the meta is terrible, despite what this tier list kind of implies that like a lot of the decks aren't super viable right now. Any of the decks in C tier and above are playable, certainly, and even some of the don't play this decks are playable, but don't play them because they're probably directly worse than some of these other decks, and some are just not very good. But yeah, that's my tier list. I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.